as I sit here, I am 31 weeks pregnant with a little girl, and a lot of you will remember that during my first pregnancy, which was with a boy, I did a video at the end of every trimester recapping my symptoms, the whole experience, and all of those videos I'll link down in the description box. But I have not done those this time, you may have noticed. A lot of people have asked me why. Truth be told, my first 2 trimesters this pregnancy were so much worse. Didn't expect that. Also had to juggle a toddler with these terrible symptoms. It's only recently that I'm realizing like this trimester 3 is easier than my last trimester 3. So I feel capable of giving you this gift of comparing my girl pregnancy to my boy pregnancy. I was never one for believing all of the old wives' tales, but for me, so many of them have been like happy during pregnancy with a boy and moody during pregnancy with a girl. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
What's happening?
I've cried about 45 times today, and I just want to like sleeping on the left side versus the right side, and the whole thing about like a girl will steal your beauty. For most of this pregnancy, I don't think I've ever looked worse.
Is that what I look like?
Both times I knew I was pregnant really early on. I just had some kind of feeling that was driving me to take tests, and both in my first pregnancy and my second pregnancy, I did a test where like I thought I could see a line and no one else could. Yet I felt something was in the waters.
This one here didn't have an obvious second line, but I felt like I could see one. And this is ages before my period was even due. Like it would have been a couple of days after conceiving.
Like I took a pregnancy test this morning, and I genuinely believed that I could see a faint line on it. And there is no line. First symptom on my boy was I just noticed a huge change in my breasts. Like they were just bigger, they felt different. With my girl, I was just so moody all of a sudden, and I'm just not a moody person. Since my first pregnancy, like pregnancy and breastfeeding just killed my like up and down emotions. Me suddenly being like really snappy over nothing and just really emotional and crying over everything, that was off for me. I did experience the nausea and exhaustion with my boy. I remember I did, but I was definitely still very much functioning. But with my girl, I can't even put words to how sick and how tired and how incapable at living I felt. I was so beyond floored. First time it was mostly nausea, but like I was throwing up this time, and the waves were so much more extreme. And I think because I already had a child, I didn't have the luxury, and also there was like no lockdowns. I realized during this pregnancy how lucky I actually was being pregnant with no expectations to go anywhere or do anything, and being childless. Like I could just put my feet up and watch a show and relax and be sick and be exhausted, and there were no consequences to those things, you know. So then I was more capable, I suppose, of work. Like I look back and I was writing my book, I was posting content and a fair bit and stuff, but everything was different this time. I was starting off from a different place. Like I wasn't as strong or as fit as I was starting my first pregnancy. When I got pregnant with my boy, I was super fit, super strong, sleeping like 9-10 hours a night. Blissful, uninterrupted sleeps. Today is a high intensity interval training day. I've got a lot of energy today though, so I might just do a few other little bits as well.
I've never felt better in myself. I think training consistently is definitely to thank.
When I got pregnant with my girl, I was still breastfeeding around the clock. I was nowhere near that previous level of fitness. Like I was doing home workouts and stuff like that. And actually like I weighed less than I did a couple of years ago before I first got pregnant. But it wasn't like muscle. So my body composition was really different. Like the muscle to fat ratio, very different, fitness level different. And my toddler hadn't been long sleeping very long stretches at night.
You're just so tired at the end of the day. Like even though he goes to bed fairly early, like I'm exhausted right now. Any tips for like energy? Do you want more exhaustion vlogs?
Which is gonna get more clicks? You know, woman snaps back to pre-baby body after 2 weeks. That versus, woman very slowly starts to walk again, spends most of her time in bed bonding with her baby and breastfeeding. And over time, you know, a year and a half builds back up an okay level of fitness.
Say I was starting at a 9 out of 10 the first time around in terms of like my health. I think like this time I was maybe at like, I'll be generous and give myself a 4. And that is why I was really intrigued by Fitbit. My brother, his fiance, a lot of people I know use these devices. This beauty on my wrist is a Fitbit Sense 2 smartwatch. I have a premium membership with them. If you are at all concerned about your activity levels, your sleep, your nutrition, mindfulness even, this is such a wonderful tool. I'll be using this for the rest of my life. It tracks your steps, it tracks your heart rate, all that good stuff, but it also helps you with managing your stress levels, and you know, it might recommend guided breathing, stuff like that. And you know, when you have a child, it's really hard to put yourself first sometimes, and I've always been very big on self-care and looking after myself, and I've really struggled with those things having a child already. Anyway, yeah, because I got pregnant again and because I was struggling with the pregnancy, I just thought it was the perfect time to get inspired to start prioritizing the physical and mental health again for the health of my baby. Really, really important to me. I remember when pregnant with my boy, I was still working out and like making myself smoothies and all this, and like, you know, with this second pregnancy, I don't like to categorize food as good and bad, but I'm very aware that some food is nutritious and some food really isn't, and leaves me feeling very hungry even though it gives me a whack of calories. And for the whole first trimester and some of the second trimester was like that gungy, greasy, delicious kind of, well, I say delicious, like I never want to see a McDonald's again. I've not touched one in so long now because I ate my body weight in McDonald's in the first trimester. Like I just had such different cravings. I remember on my boy, initially I was craving like grapefruits and some sweets, like definitely sweet and sour types of things. With my girl, anything that was not a pizza was just not getting into my mouth. On my boy, I gained a grand total of 30 pounds. And so far on my girl, I've already gained 31 pounds and I am only 31 weeks. So I still have almost 2 months to go. I am taking that quite seriously because I know that gaining too much weight in pregnancy can cause more risk to your pregnancy, just like gaining not enough weight. It depends on where you were at to begin with. I don't want to get gestational diabetes. I don't want to develop preeclampsia. Unfortunately, I had an awful experience in this pregnancy with my doctor, and she made I'm not joking, she made the comment, go easy on the carbs. To someone who has struggled with eating disorders, not a nice thing to hear. For me, as it has always been when it comes to health, it's just about ensuring that I'm stocking my house with healthy options and that I am feeding myself well. And then, yeah, like getting out every day, going for walks, even if it's not much of a walk, but like moving my body. And because I'm so distracted by my son and like the house renovation and stuff, I have been relying quite heavily on my Fitbit app to like show me where I'm at and how I'm doing. I track my nutrition a couple days a week, and I use the app to set sleep goals, to set step goals, and doing these things did help me to slow down the rate of weight gain. And when you're pregnant, you are supposed to gain weight, obviously. I just didn't want to gain too much excess weight from essentially not moving and eating too much. And yeah, things have slowed down. And I am really glad that I have prioritized my health because I just really wanted another low risk pregnancy. I want to just do what I can, and I am doing what I can. And I'll be honest, it's not all just for baby. You know, I have struggled my whole adult life with body dysmorphia. I've talked about that before and how I manage it and everything, but it's just, for me, never been something that like I click my fingers and it's gone away. It's more a voice that I can ignore. I found it much harder to ignore that voice during this pregnancy. And for me, my body dysmorphia is a lot worse when I feel like I don't look like myself. I know where I'm comfortable in myself, in my skin. If I go beyond that, the body dysmorphia voice gets a lot louder and is constantly trying to draw my attention to parts of my body. and constantly trying to make them a big, huge deal, when even though I know they're not, and I know that other people aren't looking at them and focusing on them like I am, it doesn't make it any easier to have to live with that voice in your head shouting at you all day. It's not nice. I went back to when I wrote about body dysmorphia in my first book to remember how I really managed it, because like it's been so long that it's been this bad, you know. And one of the things that did used to help me was putting myself in like uncomfortable situations. It's part of cognitive behavioral therapy, and you know, it's just stuff like wearing my underwear in front of my partner, or even like putting up a picture online in my underwear. It's like the total opposite almost of like what I want to do, which is just like hide in a bin bag, but like that's not going to help. So looking at my body a lot, just trying to just be with it, be at peace with it, accept the changes. It's hard. It's so hard. And for me, like, I don't want too many changes to happen. But for example, like, I'm probably gonna get stretch marks this time. I didn't get any stretch marks when I was pregnant with my boy. I used a lot of oil every day on my belly, but there was also probably genetics at play there. But right at the end, I did get one stretch mark on my belly, like just one little one, which is still there. And I'm realizing, you know, with so long to go, I probably will get some stretch marks on my tummy. And as I said a couple of years ago, like, I would rather not, because I know the way my brain works, and I hate that part of my brain, but I also have to just accept that that is just part of my brain. That was part of my journey. That voice comes from growing up in a society that placed so much value on looking a certain way, and or like magazines turned like your body changing a bit into a big horror story, and all that stuff got absorbed when I was younger. I can't really like uninject that stuff from my brain, because my brain just developed in a certain way. So like I try to be very forgiving of myself and those feelings, like fears that I have and stuff. And yeah, so it's like, you know, there's benefits to focusing on my health for my pregnancy, my child. There are benefits to focusing on my health for me and my own mental health. Like mental health, the two pregnancies, so different. Like my whole first pregnancy, I was so, I don't know, my memory is that I was blissfully happy. Like, yes, the world was on fire, but my hormones were on fire. They were doing me a good job, and I was just really in this little bubble of like me and this little human in my belly. And I loved it. I loved even the hard days. And I think that's like what mental health is. My mental state was very healthy. I was able to deal with the pandemic and like pregnancy and all of that stuff like really well, because I was just really mentally strong and healthy. And this time around in my, for most, well actually like probably longer than just the second trimester, because it's not like depression has an on and off button. We know this. It kind of comes on gradually, it leaves gradually when you have those episodes. But I hadn't had a depressive episode in a long time, and it was not nice. I knew a lot about postnatal depression, but I didn't really know much about depression in pregnancy, and that hit me hard in the face. And that was another reason why it became very important to me to look after my health, to practice mindfulness more, to get outside, be with nature, move my body, cook more homemade food, all of the things I've been sharing like on Instagram and stuff that I have been doing more of. While no, they don't cure depression, for me they have always helped. And this depression, it felt very tied to my hormones. It felt very tied to what my body was going through. Something a few people suggested to me as a possible now I know these people are not my doctor, was the fact that I weaned my son off of breastfeeding while pregnant, and that very much coincided with how depressed I was. And apparently that is a thing. Like, it's a huge shift within how your body and your brain and everything is working. When you're breastfeeding, you're releasing so much like oxytocin and all these good hormones and stuff. And maybe that was part of it. Maybe it wasn't just the pregnancy, but yeah, that's just been like my reality of it. And I think it did make me feel very angry at being pregnant, which I just hate. I hate saying that out loud because I wanted this so much, and because I know people who would trade their both legs to be able to get pregnant, and I hate when I have those days. At the end of the day, like I am extremely grateful for it. It's just that you have those moments where you're like, oh, I just hate this. I feel trapped in my body. I feel trapped in my brain. I felt very isolated in how I was feeling, and even when I had an opportunity to do something with someone, I would talk myself out of it because I wouldn't want them to see me in the state that I was in. And I was just, avoiding people and just crying constantly. I had some panic attacks. It was a really difficult stage. And so that like overshadowed my second trimester with my girl. There were symptoms similar to my boy. Like I had hemorrhoids again. Delicious. I'm having less pressure and pain in my pelvis and on my vag this time, which I'm shocked by, because in my first birth I had a severe tear from vag to anus, a 3rd degree tear. Awful times. Another thing with this second pregnancy is that I've had way more sensation, way more feeling of the kicks and stuff. And I don't know, is that because I've already been through it? I don't know, is that because my baby is just way more hyperactive? It could be even to do with where my placenta is. My placenta is at the back, like behind my baby, so my stomach has like no cushioning. But I don't know where my placenta was the first time. I can't remember. On my girl, my insomnia has been way worse. Way worse. I did have a bit of it when I was having my boy, but this time it's been shocking. Like, so that's why like I have to use the old Fitbit to like remind me to go to bed early. Bed by 9. That's mama's bedtime. On my boy, I had such bad heartburn. I was constantly popping Rennies and drinking Gaviscon. That hasn't hit so far on my girl. Maybe it will later in the pregnancy, but so far so good. And on my boy, I remember having really bad like heart palpitations in bed. But on my girl, I've never had that at night, but I have had it during the day, where I've looked at my Fitbit and my heart rate is suddenly like 116 beats per minute, and I'm just sitting still and I'm like, why? What is happening to me? And I can hear it like in my neck and stuff, and your blood volume just increases so much in your pregnancy. It's not a nice feeling. It's so common in pregnancy. Like my doctor was just like not concerned about it whatsoever. My blood pressure's been absolutely fine and stuff, but it just doesn't feel nice, especially if you've even the tiniest bit of health anxiety. Like it can kind of be just a little bit of a shock, I suppose. Well, I didn't have the vasospasm nipple thing. Like, you might remember with my boy when I was pregnant, I had really stingy nipples for my second trimester. I didn't get that at all this time, and I think that's maybe because I breastfed and like my body's kind of been through this before, whereas the first time my boobs had never made milk or anything, so that's probably why. That was nice to not have that, but I would have taken that over depression any day. What else? Oh, on my boy, I went on the public healthcare system, and on my girl, I'm going semi-private. So far, I've not seen any difference at all in the care. Maybe when it comes to the birth, it'll be different. Like maybe after I have the baby, I won't be in like a ward full of women with like screaming babies, and stuff like that. But so far, no difference whatsoever. With both babies, my hope was for a vaginal delivery. Hypnobirthing worked amazingly well with my boy, and so I'm doing that again with my girl. Hypnobirthing is essentially like, you can do online courses, you can do them in person, but it teaches you about birth and it teaches you ways to manage your labor so that you stay calm and you don't get anxious, you don't get scared. It's all about breathing and positive like visualizations and your mindset and all that stuff. Highly, highly recommended. Yeah, like I don't know how different the births are going to be. That is going to be really interesting to compare those birth vlogs, because my son was measuring very big the whole pregnancy. On my boy, I had disappointing news about my birth plan. My birth plan was very intricate, and I wanted a water birth in the midwife-led unit, and then it turned out that he was just absolutely enormous, and they were like, hella no. On my girl, my only thing on my birth plan is vaginal delivery. It's literally all I want. My girl is measuring completely average even now, and I'm very like, I'm in the third trimester, you know. And yeah, they do say that second births are easier, quicker, less intervention. A lot of you share that with me. I would love to know your differences between your pregnancies and births in the comments, please. I love reading that shit. Like, I love it. But yeah, this time in my initial appointments with the consultant in the Rotunda Hospital, which is where I'm giving birth this time, it was said to me that a C-section may be recommended depending on like how I healed from the first birth and all that kind of stuff. So that, like, I've had that kind of weighing on me for the whole pregnancy, which sucked. Like, I am very afraid of having a C-section. I think people who have C-sections are amazing. I know it's a huge, major surgery. I can imagine it's very scary. I know people have had like lovely ones as well. Maybe it's just the fact that the people in my life have had like really awful traumatic C-sections and recovery. Maybe that's where like my fear is coming from, but I don't want one. I'm so afraid of having a hemorrhage. Like, I had a major postpartum hemorrhage due to the forceps delivery for my son. And that's the one thing I just don't want to deal with again. And anyway, I had a checkup with the perineal clinic, and this lovely lady called Maeve examined me. She checked the tissues and just like my bum muscles. She said I have definitely healed well enough to be able to have a vaginal birth this time, and she explained to me all of the risks. My plan, my hope is that I can just go into labour, baby comes out, no to minimal tearing. That is my dream birth. Other than that, I have way less. Like, the first time I wrote out this big birth plan with like every little detail of everything I wanted, big capital letters at the top of it, no vaginal exams, like every single thing on my birth plan was ignored. Like, they did not even look at it. So like, I think having gone through what I went through in hospital, I'm way more, I don't know, I'm being more chill about it. I'm just kind of like, what will happen, but what I'm in control over is my mindset. And, you know, I can just keep my eyes closed, have some headphones on, and just like not get sucked into like being anxious over this or that or the other. I just really hope it goes easier than the first time. And I hate that I have been like afraid of birth this time. That's why I'm doing hypnobirthing again, because it worked the first time so well. But before my first baby, I wasn't afraid of labour, and I actually did love the labour. So it turns out I was right in not wasting time being afraid. But the reason I've been afraid this time is just because of the recovery the last time. But I know that I have a lot of power over my brain and shaping it and making sure that I just go into this mentally prepared, and just gonna be focusing on meeting my daughter. And I'm due in around Christmas time. Like, the official due date is the 1st of January based on the hospital's measurements, but based on my dates, because I was tracking my ovulation using the Natural Cycles app. Based on that, my due date is like late December, and I had my son 8 days early, like 8 days ahead of my due date. So I just feel like I could be in hospital like before or during Christmas. It's just, and that sounds fun to me in the sense that I think people will be in a good Christmas spirit and stuff, you know. But I do think, having been through pregnancy already, it's just easier in the sense that like you're expecting everything. I'm not shocked by like every little niggle, every little weird feeling or pain or strange sensation, like feeling baby's hiccups, or like, there is a sensation of being used to it, like being comfortable in just in being pregnant, because you've been through it before. Like, a lot of the time I forget that I am, which is saying a lot with how challenging this one has been in many ways compared to my first pregnancy. But yeah, if you had a boy and a girl, I would love to know what you found different about each pregnancy. I'm so glad that we found out the sex of the baby. I am buzzing to have a little girl and to see how different that experience is of having a daughter versus having a son, to observe like their biological differences or similarities, or like, you know, I don't know what to expect. I'm just so excited by all of it. Terrified of having a teenage daughter, but excited about having a little girl. This time, I don't know, maybe it's just because I already am a mother and have a child. Like, I really wanted to know, and I wanted to be able to connect with the baby before they were born, this time more so, because I remember during my first pregnancy having this bit of a disconnect until I had the 3D ultrasound. Also on that, my little boy's 3D ultrasound, my little girl's 3D ultrasound. I think they look really similar. That makes me so happy because my son is so cute. He's such a split between me and my husband as well. And I love when siblings look alike and you can tell that kids are siblings. But yeah, I remember it took me quite a while to have that kind of sense of like, who are you? And I know someone's sex is like a small part of who they are, as is what they look like, but just these little things, I don't know, they've just helped me to, like, when I'm in bed at night, just be picturing her, getting even more excited to meet her. As challenging as pregnancies can be, motherhood is so worth it. It's so worth it. And I probably would go through this again. I've had days where I'm like, I'm never doing this again. But like, you know, then you forget it and you come out the other side and you're like, oh. So I probably will want a third kid. It's largely going to depend on many other factors like our careers and money and what it's like having two and all sorts of stuff. But you're on the journey with me. We're on the road together. It's been nearly 10 years. I've been on this channel almost 10 years. Who has been here a long time? Let me know with a green love heart in the comments if you've been around these parts for longer than a year. That's it from me. Lots of information in the description box about the premium membership, and highly recommend Fitbit as a gift for Christmas, for a loved one, for yourself. If you or someone you love has goals related to physical or mental health, general improvement, it's a goodie. I feel very lucky to be working with this brand. But yeah, that's me. So long. Farewell, goodbye, it's time for me to bake apple pie.